That drains you out completely true. Especially after Kohli took those shots and he got taken down 6 times, it made a big difference to his fight game.
Yeah, because when a judoka is taking it on, he's not just relying on shooting for your legs. They are tripping you, they're using upper body takedowns and not giving huge tails like going for your leg. You can't meet them in the face, you can't uppercut them. They're coming straight for your body, clinching you, dropping you, tripping you, moving on you, tripping you. You have no way to stand up and stay upright against them. You can't see the takedown coming. And once you get slammed so many times, the gas tank is dead, your morale is dead.
You know, one of the greatest judokas that ever fought in the UFC was a man named Carlo Parisian.
Yeah.
But even though we have a great conversation going on, guys, join into the conversation. Hashtag Ultimate Guide to UFC at Sony Sports Network on X. But we will have a lot more to talk about in that third fight when Jiri Prochazka took on Khalil Rountree Jr. We also have the greatest submission by Zalal, and of course a lot more to chat about. We'll be right back after this clip.
European qualifiers. Portugal versus Republic of Ireland. Sunday, 12 October, 12:15 a.m. Live on Sony Sports Network and Sony Live.
Sony Sports Network presents Sportstar Blockbuster Season.
And welcome back to the Ultimate Guide to UFC. As we're all here still, lots more to discuss. But one of the greatest fights, in fact, you know what a lot of people thought was going to be this new term that has been coined by the world, the people's fight. Even though the main event was about to be the people's fight, but it was still a very significant fight in that light heavyweight division in terms of the title rankings. Jiri Prochazka took on Khalil Rountree Jr., two of the toughest light heavyweight contenders that the UFC has ever seen, took on one another, and what a show they have put on. I mean, the fight started a little slow with Jiri, you know, taking his time, a lot of his weird antics, very, very Keith Jardine-esque antics that we saw, but in the end, we saw a great finish.
Well, absolutely yes. In fact, Jiri, the way he starts is a little slow, and I think he had some 4 or 5 jumps in the first round without doing anything. But I think he took Khalil Rountree Jr. back to Alex Pereira fight, where the end was brutal. He attacked the body, he attacked his face, and Rountree Jr. looked very different when he got knocked out. He was cut all over, he was bleeding. It was brutal. It was brutal.
I mean, talk about brutality, Pushkaraj. You see the way it started, you know. It started off with Rountree Jr. in his typical fashion, landing those beautiful looping overhand rights, coming in with that body kick. We saw a big welt on Jiri's body in that first round. But second round, mid onwards, I think we saw a whole tilt shift with Khalil getting a little tired.
Yeah, Khalil was winning. He won the first 2 rounds. After that, Jiri had to go for the finish, and the way he went for the finish was absolutely amazing. Khalil made a mistake in the third round that he stood within the pocket of a Jiri hungry for a finish, and he paid the price for it. After the few shots landed on Khalil Rountree's face, you could clearly see him deflated. He didn't know what was coming, and the angles at which Jiri hits, you can't see the punches coming. Non-stop strikes to his face. He was out. He went limp, face down on the mat.
I think it was also a function of the accumulation of shots that he had taken, because he landed, he was gassed, he was out of air, and somewhere, you know, I always say that it's, you know, if you've come back from a heavy fight where you've taken a lot of damage, that can also play a factor in somewhere, because, you know, you're not the same person. We saw that towards the end, Somesh, remember when Alex Pereira cornered Rountree Jr. in his fight, it was very similar to what happened at the end.
Well, absolutely yes, and that went on in round 4, so it was punishing any which ways. It was almost 20 minutes of damage. I think out here it was a similar game where it went on to damage, and man, Khalil could not cope up with that. The left hooks were absolutely brutal. But yeah, props to Khalil Roundtree Jr. because he shot back really well and he had hurt Ely, but he still pushed forward. He said he's going to put on a show, and man, he delivered.
I mean, Pushkar, you take a look at the way the fight played out. The chins. I mean, one would think that having both these fighters getting knocked out by the greatest light heavyweight champion in the world would have some effect. But Jiri Prohaska walked through every one of Khalil's shots.
Yeah, Jiri's footwork seemed dodgy in the first 2 rounds. I don't know whether he had taken some shots, whether his leg was sore, what was the issue, but his footwork seemed dodgy. But in the 3rd round, when Khalil tried to stand up and fight him, suddenly he did not need to move. He was stuck in that point against the cage, and that's where Jiri managed to land his clean shots and absolutely finish Khalil Roundtree. The way it shook him up, it was over.
I mean, that being said, let's talk about one thing that is a glaring reality that we saw. We saw it cage side during the main event. Jiri Prohaska walked out, he took an interview, reacted to how the main event went, and was looking on very closely. How, with this win over Roundtree Jr., we've been discussing this during the main event, where does it put him in terms of those rankings? Let's have a look at the rankings, and where does that leapfrog him in terms of the title?
Well, I think he's possibly one fight away from the title, and I would like to see Alberg in there with Jiri Prohaska before anything goes up.
Yeah, as I said again, Jiri needs to now face Magomed Ankalaev to clear Magomed Ankalaev out of the contention and earn that title contention again.
Get him out.
Overall, he's a boring fighter. He has his skills, but he's a boring fighter. Jiri is getting to watch. I want an entertaining fight.
Boys, before this gets heated into this entire segment, I agree. I mean, this is, thank God we don't have this job of choosing the fights. We can only speculate, but the fans can speculate as we have yet another tweet from Arnav Saili, who keys to victory by DC were absolutely correct. Khalil has to avoid chaos and remember the avoid chaos. Had to avoid and really had to make it chaotic. Khalil did so much defense, but in round 3 it was a great fight overall. He tried to defend, he tried his best. Overall, I would say it's Joe Rogan was right, man, make it chaotic.
But absolutely, in fact, it was round 3. Round 3. So we are playing puns now.
Cutting away the footwork was key. Once Khalil could not move around anymore, and Jiri did not have to move to keep up with him, that's where Jiri found the finishing shots. Had Khalil still maintained a certain distance, knowing that he's ahead on points, knocked and moved, maybe Jiri would have
But that's not his style, That's the thing about Khalil Roundtree Jr. It's never his style.
Yeah.
He's always
He tried to look for the finish and
just go for the finish. You don't look for that end. You don't look for. He always looked to knock out his opponent, and that's the beauty of this.
Roundtree Jr. actually has very good footwork in the first couple of rounds.
Yeah.
But what happens when he gets hurt? It's like
I think it's we talk about this. We talk about the mentality. Sometimes you go back to in that game plan. Your bad is going to happen for that. And it was just an incredible fight. But we'll leave it to the UFC matchmakers for what's going to happen. But moving forward, we have the second fight, that Emmett versus Zalal, which was a shocker to a lot of people because a lot of fans wrote to us saying that, Josh Emmett, one of the hardest hitters in that division, was one of the few fighters who survived Ilya Tupuria and is going to be too much for Zalal. But we saw what happened. The minute the fight went to the ground, Zalal got in that beautiful armbar.
Well, absolutely. See, Zalal has a 56% finish rate via submission. So there was nothing new in this 7-fight win streak. I think he was on this confidence spree any which ways. And Josh Emmett is the kind of guy, he's so stocky, he's so filled with muscle, you don't even need to crank the armbar. The moment you extend the bicep, there's a good chance the bicep would have torn out there. So it was much better for him to verbally tap than to go ahead with the entire armbar and damage the elbow.
So his the entire arm was trapped, he had to verbally tap.
Yeah.
The mistake he did was he did not control the hip while trying to stack. He stood up towards the head, and at that point, your stack is not working. Your opponent is hanging off your arm and breaking it, and that's exactly what happened.
I mean, absolutely. What a great victory. And Emmett will live to fight another day. But moving on to the first fighter named Magomedov, in Abus Magomedov, who took on...
Cristiano Ronaldo. वर्ल्ड क्रिकेट के दो जायंट्स टकराएंगे एक ब्लॉकबस्टर वर्ल्ड सीरीज
That has been extraordinary.
न्यूजीलैंड वर्सेस इंग्लैंड शनिवार 18 अक्टूबर से सिर्फ सोनी स्पोर्ट्स नेटवर्क और सोनी लिव पर।
Many of the उड़ान एक ही और काबिल प्राइम वॉलीबॉल लीग पावर्ड बाय स्केपिया 2 अक्टूबर से लाइव ऑन सोनी स्पोर्ट्स नेटवर्क।
Watch the European qualifiers. Portugal versus Republic of Ireland. Sunday, 12 October, 12:15 a.m. Live on Sony Sports Network and Sony Live. Across cities and empires.
These nights are always special.
From kings to contenders.
Tonight, that is set up for heroes.
They all chase one thing.
And this is the Champions League for you.
It's more than silver.
What a night of football.
More than glory.
Unbelievable.
It's the cup that rules them all. Watch the UEFA Champions League. Live on Sony Sports Network and Sony Live. The UEFA Champions League is brought to you by and Pepsi, UEFA Champions League official sponsors.
खास करके गेम अच्छी गई सूर्य कुमार यादव कप्तान जी मिस नहीं किया बिल्कुल भी ये तो छोड़ भी नहीं सकते अगर ये क्या छूटता तो फिर और महंगा साबित होता भारत के लिए जी हाँ 115 पर चौथा विकेट गिरा और ने बनाया 58 और ये शायद चौथी होने वाली है अरे बात चली गई है ऐसा लगा जैसे मिस टाइम हुआ है लेकिन उसके बावजूद गेंद चलती चली गई आवाज तो अच्छी आई थी बल्ले से आवाज अच्छी आई थी मारना कहीं चाहते थे गेंद कहीं गई बहरहाल ये ओवर जो है ना एक बार फिर रफ्तार पकड़ी है जहां पाकिस्तान टीम ने अंदर आके स्टॉप को खेला है
ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਲਾ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਲਾਵਾਂ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਲੱਗਣੀ ਸੀ ਹੁਣ ਉੱਤੇ ਸੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਉੱਤੇ ਡੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਦੇ